Today I'm going to talk about the real Star Wars, star beings, and some ancient history in our galaxy that affected the Earth and our human evolution. And so we're going to start by going back to the battle that I've talked about in a couple of other videos. This was taking place in multiple frequencies, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth density frequencies, but where I witnessed it was at the sixth density level. So I'm going to start by saying the movies that we know about Star Wars were really an actual conflict between stars. Because star beings are sixth density beings that have created their body from being birthed from stars. They are not planetary beings. But this conflict took place on multiple densities. But the issue, I'm going to go back to talking about the specific issue, was that at the sixth density level, there were pattern keepers. See my dictionary and previous videos. There were pattern keepers at the sixth density level who were able to insert patterns and frequencies into our divine blueprint that had devastating results. And so among the sixth density beings, these star beings, they could manifest any kind of body they wanted from thought at sixth density. But at the sixth density level, the lower levels of fourth and fifth density and third density planets knew these beings as like lords of light or star beings or maybe the Elohim. But they were known to the lower planets as the guardians, the hierarchy, the wise ones, the lords of light, and they were the ones that pretty much were supervising the lower frequencies. Sixth density is sort of the middle ground between the higher worlds of light, the very advanced worlds of consciousness, and everything below six, which is what we are familiar with. In third density, we are communicating very easily with fourth density Star Trek type planets and aliens and ETs, and we have the ability to tap into fifth density if we know how to work with that. So at the sixth level, this is sort of the cosmic or galactic councils. And they were charged with the protection of the divine blueprint, but of course all levels have this responsibility, but they were charged with guarding the divine blueprint, administering the laws, the higher laws, and bringing them down into the lower worlds. And also they had abilities to alter the divine blueprint according to how they wanted to create life and bodies on various planets, because our divine blueprint is what creates bodies in the universe. Remember, consciousness is not attached to a body. Consciousness is attached to the blueprint. The soul is a container. It's just a container. What makes matter and what makes consciousness grow is the divine blueprint. The blueprint is what can manifest bodies on multiple frequencies. So there are pattern keepers who have been trained and who are responsible for keeping the patterns of your blueprint in alignment with the paradise sons and daughters and the higher councils of light, so that the bodies are manifested in alignment with the light, in alignment with the cosmic law. And at sixth density, there were some star beings, lords of light, that had developed a frequency that they could insert into our divine blueprint. These are pattern keepers. These wars were actually, the conflict was actually between pattern keepers. But it affected all the planetary systems. but they had devised a way to insert a frequency into the divine blueprint. And this frequency essentially blocked the cosmic law, or the connection line to the higher realms, because the sixth density was sort of the middle round. It blocked the ability to get this higher frequency, the frequency of living light, the frequency of the sacred fire, the frequency of what continuously rejuvenates us and perpetuates divine life, because we could be literally immortal in any body in the universe, any physical type body, if we are totally in alignment with our nourishment, the divine light, the divine love that is nourishing the divine blueprint at all times. And there was an interception of that divine flow of life force energy. So this interception frequency, I actually witnessed what this looked like, and I talked about my experience on in a Syrian vessel, because we're talking star beings. We're not talking about planetary beings when I'm speaking of Sirius, the star. So some of the stars that were involved in this conflict in our area of space would primarily, the ones that created the corrupt frequency were in the constellation Draconis, and some of the surrounding constellations of Draconis, and in Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. Those constellations, they had this corrupt frequency, and some of the Lords of Light or star beings who were working to mend this problem or solve this problem, some of them were in the constellation of Orion, but part of Orion also became corrupt by Draconis, but a large part of Orion was trying to correct the problem. These are stars that are within this constellation. Also the constellation Canis Major, also the constellation Taurus and Lyra. These constellations, there's many stars that were involved. And so this is at a sixth density star level, where these star beings were in conflict with the divine pattern and the corrupt pattern. The corrupt pattern was being infiltrated and produced down into fifth and fourth density and third density. And it was floating, it was at this border level of sixth density that decisions were made that it had to be removed from this sixth density, because this is like the line in the sand. And so that entire conflict was a way for those who were in alignment with the divine program to remove this corrupted frequency. Now, these pattern keepers and sixth density star beings or Lords of Light are essentially immortal. You just don't go around with bombs and blow their bodies up, because they create bodies by thought. Bodies are just part of their consciousness. That's how bodies are normally created in the higher worlds, by thought. And so the only solution to that was to remove this frequency and to demote, as I've said in other videos, to lower down that pattern, the beings, those star beings, those Lords of Light, to actually remove them from sixth density and demote them to fourth density. This is where those Lords of Light wound up. They wound up in a huge pattern keeper, divine blueprint shift. It's another explanation, but there was a major shift where this frequency was contained, and those beings were demoted in evolution to fourth density. Now, when I say demoted in evolution, they still maintained much of their consciousness as God-like beings or lords of light or star beings, but they were demoted to only being able to manifest their bodies in a fourth density type frequency. So they were no longer able to interfere with the sixth density level. So these fourth density beings are what we often have been told are our gods or angels or our masters, or that they created us. And they had the idea that they wanted to create a divine blueprint, not divine, a blueprint in their own image. This is based through all of our history. And they had created a blueprint in their own image. And what that actually is the image is just a frequency that the pattern keepers have inserted into the divine blueprint, because they are not able to create a divine blueprint. But they did have a frequency that they were able to insert. And I saw in that experience I had, which I've told in other videos, where I was on the ship and saw where this decision was made, and I saw how the judgment came down to demote these beings 2 frequencies, 2 densities down. I saw them insert this frequency into how they inserted it into a 6th density beings. And I saw how they were inserting it into 5th and 4th density. And how they are doing it here on Earth is through the sperm, through the male seed. When men on this planet spill their sperm anywhere and everywhere, and as often as they want, they are perpetuating this corrupted frequency. But this corrupted frequency exists also in other densities that do not have this kind of animal mating that we have. But at our density, we have this animal mating where the man gives the corrupted frequency through the seed, through the DNA, to the female. The female becomes the container for this, and then they are birthed, these bodies that automatically have this frequency. But this frequency is also embedded in our astral bodies. It's also embedded in 4th density bodies. And one of the ways that throughout our history there's been attempts to bypass this frequency down here is, for instance, I've done a video on this, on Jesus's divine lineage. When Jesus was born, he was not created from the human man's corrupt seed. I told you in that video there was this higher seed frequency that came down above, at the 6th density higher levels, and was implanted into Mary, so that seed did not carry the corrupt frequency. And this is how Jesus was able to manifest all the powers that he had, and he was able to create a divine lineage. Remember, Jesus never had children. Jesus never had anything going on with Mary Magdalene at all. Jesus was soulmates with his mother Mary. They came from the same divine blueprint programming. So Jesus created a lineage from his physical birth that we can enter into through what we call a baptism by fire. And this is different than going and joining a Christian church and being baptized by water, because even John the Baptist said, I baptize by water, but one comes after me who will baptize by fire. Being baptized by water does nothing. Saying you're a Christian does nothing. You have to have a baptism by fire through Jesus, and that is what awakens your divine blueprint so that it is now strong enough to resist the corrupt frequency, the impression of the corrupt frequency. So we have that option to have a baptism by fire. And that would be people like St. Francis, for instance. But even if you see my video as my childhood experiences, at 7 years old, I had this baptism by fire and was put into Jesus' lineage before I even knew really much about Jesus, except that he was a baby at Christmas. So there are some other options that are possible that can activate the divine lineage and help you overcome the corrupt frequency. But most of what's going on in India is still operating on corrupt programming, is corrupt belief systems, because reincarnation is a corrupt frequency belief system that keeps you trapped in the lower worlds. So a lot of, we have to be very careful with India. A lot of their beliefs are not going to free you. They just keep you trapped in the astral worlds. But there have been, through Indian history, some divine beings who were able to initiate through their lineage a divine frequency that could override the corrupt programming. But there are very, very few of those. And so, like, going and meditating and getting a mantra from a guru is not going to do it for you. Just like joining a Christian church or any other religion, joining those religions is not doing it for you. Getting a mantra from a guru is not doing it for you. It is an activation that completely reorganizes your blueprint, and it is a profound experience that once you have it, it is then you're carrying the responsibility of that frequency to now nurture it and have it grow in you, so that you can be someone who actually overcomes the old programming, the frequency, and you are growing in the divine lineage. And you can, when you die or pass over, you can go into higher frequencies of light. You can bypass the astral. And even if you do have a baptism by Jesus, a fire baptism, and your belief system, you have to be careful that you're not attaching yourself to your family lineage, thinking that you're going to go over when you die and be with all your family, because that still that hinders the frequency that Jesus has given you, because you're attached to your family. But irregardless, if you have a baptism by fire with Jesus and you wind up in the astral worlds because of certain belief systems, you are in a part of the astral world that is not being bombarded by the corrupt frequency. So even though you have a baptism by fire, your heart is open, your mind is awake, and maybe you have this belief system that you're going to go see all your loved ones when you cross over, and you have this more earth belief system that you're going to keep your same personality and your same body. You will go to the astral, but it will be a clean area of the astral. It will be under Jesus's lineage. So there are some lineages like that on this planet. Some very few in India, and Jesus. Pretty much there's not very many. So what happened with the sacred fire, I want to bring this up because the sacred fire videos and teachings are part of this library. After that activation that I had, and I was in Jesus's lineage, I had a continuous awakening into the love of Jesus throughout my childhood and my whole life, really. But at the point where I want to bring my story up to the point where I had an encounter with my ascended self. I have a video on that. I want to explain who that ascended being was again to you so you're clear, because I had, in that video, I tell you how the whole portal opened up into my room in my house, and I fell to my knees and in a bow, and was raised up into my 6th density body. The being that contacted me, the female that contacted me, she is my creator. In our divine blueprints, we have a creator. So when people talk about God created us or ETs created us or whatever people think created us, in our divine blueprint, which is multidimensional, and our consciousness is multidimensional, at the very high levels, above 6th density, we're talking 8th, 9th, and paradise levels, these 8th and 9th beings have the ability to, well, many densities have the ability to activate consciousness into reality, but I don't want to go down that path right now. What I want to talk about is only at these higher levels of 8th and 9th and paradise levels do they have the ability to create life by by picking consciousness. They can, because they are pattern keepers. Let me also qualify, pattern keepers in these 8th and 9th densities have the ability to create a blueprint to attach consciousness at a certain frequency, a 6th, a 5th, a 4th density, or 3rd density consciousness to the blueprint, and to bring that blueprint into that reality and to have it manifested. The beings that do that are our creators, and I met the female that created me. In other words, I met my God self. And these beings at this 8th and 9th density level, they are these great cosmic beings that literally create life in all of the universe. And the paradise sons were the first patterns ever created by the firstborn. And I've done a video or two on this too. But the firstborn created the paradise sons and daughters. In other words, created the first patterns that could produce a sort of male and female, or a pattern of joining in matter so that consciousness could become activated and grow. And so the paradise sons and daughters hold the original patterns, but the 9th and 8th levels are great cosmic beings that would be considered gods to us, in that they created us. They created our blueprint. So in order to touch into your God self, into your higher self, you have to be able to move past that corrupt frequency. And this is the whole motivation of what I'm trying to do with this library, and why Jesus came, and why a very few specific divine avatars in Eastern philosophy were able to create a way to bypass this frequency. So the importance of, I want to mention also about this encounter with my God self. These two experiences is what actually gave me the ability to bring forth this sacred fire in this lineage that I am giving to humanity. So when I am talking to you about the sacred fire, this sacred fire that I anchored in my body first, and then I have actually physically anchored it on people in private sessions. I used to do that a long time ago, but you can do it to yourself. This sacred fire ability that I have, and now you have, comes because I had the Jesus activation at 7 into his lineage, and I had another activation which I was already beginning to work with the sacred fire right at about the time. Then I had the other activation with my God self. And these steps in my life allowed me to bring through this sacred fire, which is a similar way for you to activate within yourself the divine programming and bypass the corrupt frequency. So let me be clear on this. I'm not saying I myself have this power and I'm giving it to you. That is not it. I am saying this sacred fire has been activated because I actually came through the Jesus lineage activation and through the activation of my God self, which is at 8th density, 8th and 9th density. So it's been, it's these frequencies, the Jesus lineage and your higher divine God self lineage. It's the combination of those two lineages that allowed me to hold that as a container. I'm just a container for it. To be able to pull it through here and bring it out and offer it to people who want to work with the sacred fire. So this is one of the explanations I wanted to give you, that we are working to bypass this lower frequency. Now, let me also, this is going to be a little bit longer video than I wanted, but let me also mention to you, part of the corruption of this frequency is the overdependence of technology. And now technology by itself, there's nothing wrong with it. But our divine birthright is to manifest anything we want from thought, not from having to depend on technology. So I want you to see there are two paths that are moving along this timeline on the earth. There's the timeline of we are totally helpless and have to depend on technology. Think of Star Trek. Even in Star Trek, as advanced as they were out in the galaxy, looking at new planets, their human self was totally incapable of doing anything on its own. They totally were dependent on technology. They died, they got sick, and technology had to fix them. They had no gifts, they didn't have telepathy, they couldn't manifest from thought. They had to depend on technology out in the galaxy. This is fourth density, part of fourth density. They depend totally on technology. This is where our third density world is going right now. Total dependence on technology. This is why they want to plug us with AI, because we can't think higher thoughts. We've got to have a computer brain tell us on Earth what to do. But there is another path, and this path has originally a lot of the immortals that I have been contacted by on Earth. They went this sort of other path, which was an alchemical path, but also was more of an earth magic path, where they were using their skills and abilities to manifest, and they didn't have technology, so they had to use more natural earth magic. This path, the earth magic, alchemy earth magic path, this is more the direction we are or should be going. And this is why my Patreon group and this library is all about helping you activate your skills. Because to advance into higher frequencies, you want to bypass the corrupt frequency of we are totally dependent on technology, and our consciousness never grows. Our consciousness just gets plugged into computer technology. But we want to bypass that corrupt frequency. We want to go down a different path where we develop our divine skills. They're in you. They come from your divine blueprint. You have telepathy. You have precognition. You have bilocation. You have abilities to heal. You have abilities to be immortal. You have abilities to manifest whatever you desire from thought into reality. Even at this level, we can do that. But we can't do it if we don't expand our consciousness up our divine blueprint to get access to those abilities. They're in us. And some of you may be experiencing it, lucid dreaming, astral travel. If you are, you need to come and join this library and subscribe, and also join the Patreon group and start developing your skills, because there is a group that is bypassing this technology corrupt frequency programming, and they are going to manifest their divine skills, and they're going to heal. They're going to have telepathy with each other and telepathy with higher beings. They're going to get premonitions of the future. They're time travelers. They can go backwards and forwards in time. They can rejuvenate their bodies. They can learn to manifest things by thought. These are all things we are capable of doing. And so we need to start moving on that path, and I'm trying to gather those people who are feeling like they have abilities and they're starting to have lucid dreamings. All of your guidance comes through lucid dreaming and astral traveling, not all, but a large majority of it. And so we need this path to start being developed because, as I've said in many videos, we have a great migration that's coming. And I'm going to finish here with this thought. The two paths that are following, this second path that I'm talking about, are you manifesting your abilities. You don't need technology. It's not that we can't use it, and it's not that I'm not dependent on my cell phone. Yes, I am, but we have to develop our alternate skills. We have to be able to not be a slave to the corrupt frequency. We have to, even if you could say, I'm not saying we go isolate ourselves, but I'm saying if you were to create two worlds living on the same planet, and one world would be a world that was working to create everything from thought, from manifesting through their skills, through growing their consciousness. And then you have another that doesn't know how to do anything, and they have to depend on technology and computers to tell them how to do things. So this is my video today, and so we're trying to get this great migration going, and we're trying to get this group of people who are going to be traveling into higher worlds by manifesting their own divine skills. So please come and join my Patreon group, and please share these videos. Thank you.